It's the Inspired by Joanne show.
Meet your host, certified confidence coach Joanne Dean, inspiring women on the rise. Welcome to another Faith Chat.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Inspired by Joanne show. I am Joanne Dean, your host, and today's faith walker is none other than Serena Jones Dorsey. God gives gifts to the body to equip the saints, and Serena is one of God's gifts to us. As a child, Serena had an insatiable love and concern for children and their well-being. As a result, she's a proud alumnus of Albany State University, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a minor in early childhood education. She went on to earn her master's degree in business management and administration from the University of Phoenix. She is the CEO of Wise Learning Connections, LLC, an organization where she trains and equips individuals in the area of professionalism, team building, and parenting. She serves faithfully in the area of helps ministry, Dean of Christian Education for Spoken Word Ministerial Alliance, incorporated under the leadership of Bishop E. Jacob Rieux, Executive Director of Indelible Impressions Learning Center under the leadership of Pastor Craig Oliver Sr. She is committed to God, and every day she dares to be different. Serena is known mostly for her peaceful, prayerful, and positive attitude. If you need encouragement, she is the one to call. Let us welcome her. Well, hello, Faith listeners. This is Joanne, and welcome to another edition of the Inspired by Joanne show. We're so excited for today's Faith Walker, Serena Jones Dorsey. Woo! She's the mother of 2 millennial daughters, and she works tirelessly to serve a community of little ones and their parents through her work. Serena came into my life as a result of Hurricane Katrina, and she decided to stay, y'all. I have watched her go from the uncertainty of what could come next as she began to rebuild her life to confidently transitioning into becoming the CEO of her own business. Let's welcome Serena.
Hello. I'm excited as well.
We're so happy to have you. So we're going to dive right in, Serena, and I want to start with its passion for parents, how to up-level your parenting game. And so thank you for deciding to speak on this topic. So let's talk about your love for parenting and what is your mission for parenting?
Okay. Well, I am excited as well. And as Joanne has stated, I love parents. I love being a vehicle for parents. And I want to say it actually started before I actually became a parent. I can remember being in church as a teenager, and I would have all the children on the pew with me, sitting with me as I cared for them, as their parents did ministry. I would have all the little ones with me. I can remember in high school having summer camps in my parents' house as I cared for people's children. So I believe my love for nurturing and caring for children came even before I naturally became a parent. That gift was already on the inside of me to want to care for children and to be that tool to nurture them and make sure they always had what they needed. And so when I became a parent, it was my mission to make sure I was the best parent that I could be. However that looked, I wanted to be great at being a good parent. I didn't that did everything for myself or was selfish, but I wanted to be a sacrificial parent. I wanted to make sure my children would always have what they needed from me as their mom. And so that has always been my goal. And now that I'm on the other side of parenting adults, I want to share my story. How did that work for me? What worked? What didn't work? And so whatever tool I could use, whatever vehicle I'm using, I want to put the word out on how we can be effective as parents. No matter what stage you're in, no matter what age you're in, you can be an effective parent. It's just having a will to want to do it and the passion for wanting to be the best parent that you can be to your children.
And so you talked about now that you're parenting adult children, let's talk about what it was like as a new parent versus now being an empty nester.
Wow. As a new parent, I can remember being so nervous. I can remember sitting in my parents' living room because I had my first daughter at the age of 19 and I was still in college. I was a sophomore in college. And I can remember having to transfer back home to be at home with my parents in those early stages of my daughter being young. And the day my mom had to go back to work after being home with me and the baby, I cried because I was thinking, what am I going to do with her? And my mom had gotten up that morning, gotten me a dress, put her in her little bouncer seat, and Nia sat in that bouncer seat, and I sat in the rocking chair and just looked at her. And my question to Nia was, so what are we going to do now? She's gone. And I cried thinking, I don't know what to do. And instantly, I know I heard the Spirit say, you're going to take care of her. You're going to feed her. You're going to change her. You're going to make sure she's okay. You know, and I'm like, oh, everything I did for everybody else, child.
Right.
You know, and they would leave their children with me. But it was that nervous feeling of she's not going anywhere. No one is coming to pick her up at 5 o'clock when they get off work. She is here with you for the long haul. And I was so nervous. I was so scared of, am I really going to be able to do this full time? You know, can I take care of this baby full time and give her everything she needs? Now, as I transition to being an empty nester, in the beginning, I was nervous again, you know, thinking, wow, I'm just here. They're gone. They don't need me anymore. You know, they're doing their own thing. They think they know everything. You know, they call for some advice, but not all advice. Most times when they call, it's after they've decided to do whatever it is they're going to do. And so being an empty nester is different. It's a different journey. I do celebrate the fact that, you know, they're very independent, strong young women. I do celebrate the fact that they're very ambitious. I celebrate the fact that they're God-fearing and all those type things. But there are moments when, you know, I still want them close at times. I still want them, you know, to come by or call. And but it's still good. It's good. It's not a bad nervousness on this side of it. The beginning phase, it was a bad nervousness, but this side is a good nervousness because I do celebrate watching how they evolve into young women and how they're claiming their own lives and how they're going for their purpose and, you know, doing everything that I taught them to do. And so it's not a bad nervousness on the empty nester side. It's actually a good feeling.
Wow. And so I want to piggyback on something you said that, you know, they're strong, they're ambitious, they're God-fearing. How did you pass on your faith to your children?
I lived it. That's one of the things I can say. I lived it before them. And not that I lived it in a perfect way, because I made a whole lot of mistakes. That some things I wish I could have hit the rewind button and said, oh my God, did they see that? Or did they hear that? But one thing I can say was we've always had a consistent Christian walk within our family. And so I have a strong support system that also undergirds me and hold me accountable. And so me and Danielle sees that as well. And them growing up young, they don't know a time where we weren't in church or where we didn't celebrate God. And so when they would come to me with things, I never hesitated to say, well, what did God say? You know, did you pray about that? You know, you do know mommy gets the things she gets because mommy prays. You know, mommy asks God. It doesn't just fall out the sky. It doesn't just come, yes, I work, but God has provided those things for me. And so having those honest conversations with them, not thinking they're too young or they don't understand. No, at that age, being young is the best time to begin to share those stories with them. And then as they watch you grow, they watch you go to church. When we go to church, I was never afraid to lift my hands in front of them. I was never afraid in those moments of pain where I cried in front of them. And so they begin to watch me. They begin to see they began to ask questions, and I was always very transparent with them with where I was, what I was feeling. And then I came back and said, guess what? Mommy's all better. Mommy prayed, and God helped me. God helped. And so those conversations has helped me to transition and transfer that over to them. So when they come to me with stuff, I refer back. Did you pray? What did God say? What does God's word say about that? Let's see if we can find a scripture and attach to that and see how can we live that out. What does God mean when he says this? And so that's kind of how we've always walked our journey with them, and how I've lived it out before them, had honest dialogue about them, about God and faith and how that looks. And not that everything is going to be perfect, not that you're going to do everything right, but this is how we overcome.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. And as you're talking, what came to mind was, oftentimes, as a social worker first, I would encounter kids and you would always know what they would observe at home based on what they do in your presence. And Absolutely. So it sounds like you have modeled well in front of your kids, and now they're living that out. So you can rest in knowing that the foundation has definitely been laid. So hats off to you for modeling in front of your kids and being transparent to let them know that, mommy doesn't always get it right, but you still taught them how to get back on track. So Amen. Thank you for sharing that story. Let's talk a little bit about how parenting impacted your career choices, or did it?
It did. It did to a level. Even before I became a parent, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be in the world of education. I wanted to be around children. I can't think of a time in my life where I was not connected to a child. A family member, a church member. I've always been connected to children. And so as I went to school, I went with that same thought. I want to be in education. I want to be a teacher. And I remember my first job, I worked as a summer camp counselor at Beulah Baptist Church. And that was also the first job I was fired from. And I got fired because I was holding a little girl and she would suck her thumb and I would just hold her. And one of the camp supervisors said, Serena, you cannot keep holding her. But every time I would put her down, she would cry. And so I would always just pick her back up and hold her because I felt like she needed that. She needed that from me. And I got fired the last day of summer camp for holding her. And from that time on, I just had this connection with children. I could see them in the store, and it's like a magnet, that attracts them to me and me to them. And so as I began to think about, what I want to do, I wasn't in the mindset of purpose at that time. I wasn't thinking, oh, this is my purpose. This is where God is taking me. I just thought, this is what I like. This is what I like. So I want to teach. And so I chose my path based on what I like to do and what I enjoy. And then as I became a parent, of course, my children went to school where I taught, which worked for my advantage. And of course, when they were off, I was off. And so, of course, it worked as the path began to, as the journey began. But I think I chose the path based on what I enjoy and not so much the fact that I was a parent. I just love children. I love teaching them. I love nurturing them. I love giving back to them. I love partnering up with parents. And so that's how I chose my career. And so being a parent, it just kind of connected and it all came together for me.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And I think you said something key. You just did what you love to do. Right. So talk a little bit to the parents that are now sheltered in at home with their kids. What advice would you give them for keeping their kids on track as well as keeping their sanity?
Oh, wow. I would definitely say, especially if you have a little one, between the ages of that toddler, early elementary, preschool age, I would definitely say consistency. You have to give them consistency. You have to give them a routine. You have to give them visuals, and you have to explain don't take away the explanation from them. Explain and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to do next. Because what's going to happen is they're going to keep coming to you with what they want to do. And that's going to change every 5 to 10 minutes. They're going to want to do something else. So you have to keep them engaged, but show them what they're going to do. Have a schedule up on the wall with clip art. And you can print those off the computer and put pictures next to each time. And let them move it, get a paper clip. Let them move it down as it's time to transition to the next thing. But the key to your sanity is going to be consistency. It's going to be routine. Them doing the same thing at the same time every day. Is it going to be a struggle in the beginning? Absolutely, because it's unfamiliar to them and it's unfamiliar to you. They're not used to you being the one that's coaching them throughout the day. It's easy for them when they come in a classroom where they expect structure. They expect the teacher and all of their friends to do the same thing. When they come home, it's free spirit. When I come home, I'm used to doing what I want to do, how I want to do it. And so now you're bringing me in my own home in a different environment where I have to change my thinking. So it's going to take some time, not only for you to get used to it, but for them to get used to it. But give them routine, give them consistency. Every day, the same time, they should be doing the same thing. They should go down for nap at the same time. They should use the potty at the same time. They should eat. Don't let them eat all day, walk around with food and all those type things. No, let's go to the table. We're going to sit right here. We're going to have breakfast. When you're done, go put your food in the trash. They know how to do it because they do it at school. Mm-hmm. And so if you help them and use those words and that verbiage, they will do it. And it will make your day go so much smoother. When they go down for naps, then you go do what you need to do. Go catch up on your work or take a nap if you need to and things like that. But in order to keep your sanity, they need routine and they need consistency.
Wow, so powerful. Thank you for that. That is awesome. So talk a little bit about how you kept God first in the mundane seasons of motherhood.
Wow. I would say I did keep God first, but I will also say there were seasons where he was kind of shadowed in my mind and things I was doing. I never eliminated him. There's never been a time where I can say I eliminated God out of my life or out of my thought process or anything. But I can say there have been times where I didn't consult him. There have been times where it got to a place where I felt like I've been doing this long enough. You know, I kind of know what to do. I don't have to ask God. You know, I can use my own free will and I'm not a bad person. I can make this happen. But it's in those moments where he had to show me, you do need me. It didn't work out the way you needed it to work out. It wasn't all the way bad, but it wasn't at its best. And so it was in those moments where God had to remind me, Serena, you do need me. Come back and consult me because there's a piece you left out that would have made this better if you just would have asked me. And so with enough bumps on the head with that, is in the moments where I always consulted him. I always had to go back and pray and ask God, okay, how do you want me to handle this? I was one of those parents where restriction was not really hard for me. You know, I would put my girls on restriction, you know, in a minute, because one of the things I always wanted them to know, mom is going to do exactly what she says she's going to do. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how bad it makes me feel. I don't care if I go in my room and cry later. But if I tell you this is going to be the consequence, if you do that, then I make sure I do it. I make sure I do it. And so I would ask God, okay, so you know what Nita did, or you know what Danielle did. What is a good punishment for this? You know, what can I do where they're going to get it? Because another thing I realized was if they didn't feel the consequence, then the punishment is going to be invalid. It's not going to matter. And when you have young children, the key to punishment is, guess what? Your own punishment as well. Because that's the only way you're going to know that they're doing it. So you can't give them a punishment and then you go out, or you in your room on the phone, and you're not following up to ensure that they're doing what you expected them to do. And so I kept God in the center of all of that. You know, No parent wants to be seen as the bad parent or the mean parent. Everyone wants to be the parent where my children love me, or they raise and call me blessed and all those good things. But there comes a point where you have to know they need discipline, they need structure, they need accountability. And if they're not given that in their early seasons of life, it's going to be hard when they become an adult.
Wow. So much great information packed in that response. Thank you. Thank you for that. You talk a whole lot about consulting God. How do you know when it's your voice versus God's voice?
Because a lot of times when it's God's voice, it's probably something I don't want to do.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And even though I know it's the right thing, it's that push, where him and I are like going back and forth almost. It's like I hear God saying, now, Serena, you notice what you're supposed to do. And Serena is saying, but man, why I have to do that? I'm not the one that's wrong in this thing. Mm-hmm. You do have to go back. And one thing with parents, a lot of times we don't think we have to go back and fix it. If we mess up as a parent, then we have the responsibility to go back and say, you know what, baby, mama messed up. I am so sorry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fix it. We have to go back and fix it as well. We can't take the pride stance and say, well, because I'm the parent, I don't have to go apologize. Yes, mm-hmm. we do. And that's mm-hmm. another piece of modeling to them. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and say, you know what? Mommy didn't hear the whole conversation. I missed something. That was miscommunicated. And you know what? I apologize for that. Mm-hmm. And God will tell you, now you need to go back and apologize. Mm-hmm. And you sit there and think, oh my God, I got to go back. I done went off on this child. I done did all of this. Now I have to go back and say, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So it's in those moments when you know it's him, because it's something you probably don't want to do, mm-hmm. that he's telling you to do, mm-hmm. that you need to do. And so that's how I begin to know the difference between when it's Serena speaking and when it's God speaking.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I remember a time when I was running our after school program and I had raised my voice at the kids. And wow, when I got home, I was feeling like so sad about it. Right. And so the next day, I felt that unction. Like you said, I felt God leading me. And so I apologized to the kids and they were looking at me like I had two heads. Like, it's okay, Miss Joanne, because I really sensed that no one had ever done that before. Nobody had come back and say, you know what? I shouldn't have raised my voice. I should have been able to control what I was feeling, because you guys were all over the place. And I felt like the only way I could get your attention was to raise my voice, but I should have been more creative in trying to do that. So forgive me for raising my voice. But they truly were looking at me like, what is she doing? Like, they were like, oh no, it's okay, Miss Joanne, you're okay. But I felt like God was pleased that I did take the initiative and do what he told me to do, which was to apologize. And you never know how that would affect their journey from that day on, that an adult came back to say, I'm sorry, I should have handled that a little bit differently. So my next question for you is, how did you talk to your kids about crisis? And how did you recognize when they were going through a crisis?
Well, I'll start with how did I recognize it? Mm-hmm. From knowing them. I watched them, and even with just raising them, I know their mannerisms. Even now, I know them. I know when they call by the tone of their voice. Even in text messages, how they text me, I can tell when something is wrong. And so I begin to ask small questions. How are you? What's going on? And at that moment, they either have the responsibility to tell me, or they choose not to tell me. In the moments where they decide, I'm going to tell you, whatever the crisis is, I begin to unpack it based on what they're sharing. Now, of course, Nia is much more open. Nia come quick, and want to share and tell, whereas Danielle is much more reserved. And so you have to know your children and how they're wired and how they operate, because they're going to be different. And so I look at the clues. I look at their body language when we're around each other. We can be sitting at the family table on Sundays, and I can look at one of them, and I can tell by their face, I can tell by how they're leaning, and I know instantly something wrong, you know. And so at that moment, I probably won't say anything. But later on, you know, I shoot them a text, or I say, you know, what's going on? You good? You know, and so depending on what the crisis is, I unpack it based on the information they give me. Now, when they were little, it was easier because I had more control. You know, I can control their environment. I can control, you know, their friends most times. I can control what goes on at school because I can show up there. Whereas parenting adult children, you don't have as much control. They go in their own environments. They talk to who they want to talk to. You know, they come to you when they feel a need. Either they're going to take your advice or they're not going to take your advice. All you can do is sit back and pray. Sit back and pray. And so as crises come up, I unpack it and I share with them based on the information they give me. And again, I never leave God out. One thing they're going to know, oh, Mama, I knew you was going to say that. I knew you was going to go there. Well, guess what? That's all I have. That's the only thing that has gotten me through all of these years is God. So I share with you what I have. I've been where you are. The only difference is, yes, you all have an advantage to a whole lot more than what I had when I was growing up. So you all are open to this whole world of technology and social media and all these different things that I didn't have. So I can only advise you based on wisdom and what I think. So I say things like, you need to take that down. Don't put that up there. That's not a good look. You know, yeah, I don't like that picture. Yeah, that's saying something, you know. And so they take that from me. But that is because we have walked this journey for so long and they trust me as their mom. You know, I've always had open dialogue and conversations with them as they were growing up. So we've always shared. So it's easier, you know, for me to hold them accountable to certain things because they don't see mom do it. You know, I'm not going to tell them, you take that down or that picture doesn't look good, but then next thing you know, mama putting up a picture that looks way off, you know, and so they trust what I'm saying because they've seen me do it.
So it's back to modeling. It's back to, you know, establishing a relationship with your children. And it's really, you know, what I hear you saying, it's really about, you know, walking the talk.
Absolutely.
Can you share with us, because I can hear how strong your faith is. Can you share, or do you remember your first encounter with God?
I do. I was a young adult at Beulah Baptist Church. And again, my parents have always taken me to church. My whole life I've been in church. There hasn't been a time where there's been a gap where I did not go to church. But my first true experience with him was at Beulah Baptist Church. I was in the youth choir, Tom Carlton's youth choir. And I can remember singing, Lord, directing, as a matter of fact, because I was the youth choir director at the time. And I was directing, Lord, I'm available to you. And it was something about those words that day that just hit me. And tears began to flow. And I began to bow, you know. And I'm like, wow. You know, and so I could really feel the presence of God. And so after that whole rehearsal experience, I went home. And again, my parents had an open table as well. And so I began to ask my parents, you know, what was that? You know, why was I crying? You know, I didn't feel bad, you know, and so my parents began to share with me, you know, that was the Spirit of God. That was the Spirit of God. He covers you, you know, he protects you. It was, and they start asking, what did it feel like? I said, it felt good. You know, I was crying, but I didn't feel bad. And so that was a challenge for me. Where are these tears coming from? And so my dad began to explain, when you think about, you know, being available to God, when you think about knowing that God created you and you want him to use you, it brings this peace and this good feeling over you. So that's where the tears came from. And so that was my first true experience with God. I was about 15 years old at Beulah in the Tom Carlton Youth Choir.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And so at 15, you were directing the choir. So you were already in leadership role at 15.
I can
Wow.
remember at the time, Pastor Jimmy Lee Smith was the pastor, and because I was the choir stand was huge, so you're talking all these youth, and so of course I was short. You know, I've always been the smallest person in the group, and Uncle Jimmy, as I called him, went and had them bring a box out for me to stand on in order for everybody to see me. And when I stood up on that box, I was like, oh my God, you know. But yes, I directed the youth choir back then as a teenager.
Wow, that's incredible. And I bet you can share some stories around that. That would have to be a part two.
Yes.
Incredible, incredible. So I know that, while you have had an incredible journey, there have also been some bumps in the road. So let's talk about, how did you parent while going through divorce?
Yes, absolutely. And that was a dark season for me because, of course, no one plans to get divorced. No one, says, this is how I want my family to end or how I want my family to look. And this was something I can honestly say I hadn't seen modeled because my parents were still together, at the time where I was getting a divorce. And so they had been together my whole life. And so I hadn't seen a lot of parenting through divorce. But again, one thing I always knew, I wanted my children to always have the best experience. I always wanted them to get all they can get from their parents. And with that thought in mind, I never removed their dad. One thing I shared with them, even after the decision was made for divorce, your mom and dad are divorcing, but you still have both parents. He's still your dad. I'm still your mom. No matter what we go through, that is not going to change. And so Dave and I began to dialogue around how is this going to look. I never told him he couldn't see them. Whatever he did to me was never predicated on him seeing his children. That never happened. We were going to co-parent. So he was always able to get them. He was always at their functions. I always shared information with him. Nothing was too small, nothing was too big. Everything I learned about me and Danielle, I shared it with him. I would call him and tell him. I always sent pictures to his parents. I never wanted them to miss moments with me and Danielle because I wanted them to feel you still have both of us. Mm-hmm. So as we went through the divorce, we began to blend the family. So their dad, of course, got remarried before I did. And what did we do? We brought there, and we never called her their stepmom. I always called her mom too. They always saw me interact with her. They always saw me embrace her. My family embraced her. She is my wife-in-law still to this day, and their dad has passed on. So they still see us, doing the God thing. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be rough. The goal is, what do you want the children to get out of this experience? And I wanted them to get the best of both worlds at that time. I didn't want them to feel like now that your parents are divorced, you have to choose. They didn't have to make a choice. Their dad and I made a choice. They didn't have to make a choice. They had both parents. And so throughout that whole experience, that's what we gave them. We gave them both of us.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, so often when people go through a divorce, it's not amicable and the children suffer. What do you think was different for you all?
We made a decision that it was done. One of the things I see a lot of is people not being honest with where they really are. And so when Dave and I decided we were done, we meant done. There was no, let me call him today to see what he's doing. Or maybe we can go out to dinner. We didn't play those games like that. When we were done with us, we meant it. Everything we talked about was around the children. Everything we engaged around was around the children. We didn't have private moments with him and I and, all those little things that people do that began to resurface themselves. The fire was out. And so we left it there. And so it made it easier, not only for him and I, but for the children. They didn't get mixed signals between, are they getting back together? We're going to dinner as a family now. Is this how this about to look? We never gave them that false impression that we were ever getting back together. Once it was done, it was done.
Wow. So you guys were clear.
Yes.
You were clear and you didn't confuse the kids. I love that. That's some great advice. Once again, it goes back to, like you said, with your kids, with the discipline, like I want them to know that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And you are great at following through. And I'm sure that's a skill set that you have passed on to your kids, the ability to follow through, because that is key. Because that is key. So let's talk a little bit about, because I hear your heart. I hear the kindness, even in going through divorce. Talk about how important it is to teach our children kindness.
It is very important because they need to know that it's good to be kind. You don't have to walk around with this edge. You don't have to walk around with this perspective of somebody's out to get me. You can be peaceful. You can smile. You can be nice. It makes you feel refreshing. And so I always share that with them. Be nice to people. It doesn't matter who it is. Be respectful. Anytime an adult is talking to you or referencing you, you look at them. You give them your attention. You don't turn your head. You don't be disrespectful and things like that. And so if it ever came back to me that they were being disrespectful, then we handle that. We don't laugh about it. It's not cute, even at the age of 2. You're not allowed to be disrespectful. You're not allowed to hit back at an adult or just walk off or not respond. If you hear someone calling you, you come. And so, of course, that was also given to me as a child. My parents didn't allow us, to just walk in a room and you don't speak. You don't hear an adult calling you and you keep going. No, you come back and you see what they want. And so I always taught them to be nice to people. You never know who you're encountering. You never know when you're going to meet someone. You don't burn bridges. You be nice. You be respectful. And again, I show that to them. They even have laughing jokes now. They say, Mom, you just let people do anything to you. You just let people run over you. You're just so patient. You're just so patient, And one of the things I share with them, someone was patient with me. Someone has to be patient with me as well. And so you never know who you're going to encounter on the journey. You reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. And so do your best to be kind. Do your best to be nice. Don't always come off so hard, and so mean and so harsh. And so we dialogue around, that whole conversation piece as we model it as well.
Wow, incredible. So for the parent whose kid is older now and they're not seeing the kindness in them, is it too late to teach your kid kindness?
I would never say it's too late because there are times now where I don't see it in mine. There's times now, and I actually say to them, who is your mama? Like, where did you come from? Who taught you that? There are moments when I say that to them now because they have influences now everywhere. When they get to a certain age or reach a certain age, we're really no longer the person that they look at like that. They still respect us. They still hear from us, but they go to their peers for advice. They want to know, what would you think, girl, if you were me? We're the last resort now when they get older. And so there are going to be moments where you will see that, did they even hear me? I never say it's too late. Every advantage that I get to drop a nugget to them, I say drop it to them. They may take it and walk with it. They may take it and put it in the back of their mind. But then at that moment you pray, God, bring it back to their remembrance. When that time comes and they're faced with something, bring back to them what was said to them. And you just got to trust the Spirit. You just got to trust God to do what God said He's going to do. Train them up in the way they should go, and when they old, they won't depart. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. I never say it's too late, because even with me, there are nuggets that people drop on me now. So I never think it's too late to stop learning information. It's a matter of applying it. It's a little bit harder the older we get to retrain the way we think. Those learned behaviors that we're used to, the older we get, it's hard to take new information, process it, and then do it. Whereas with a child, they're like a sponge. They're going to take it and do it just because they trust what you say. The older children get, it's not as easy, but I would never say, don't give it to them. Give it to them anyway. Let the seed drop, somebody else will come water, and God will give the increase.
Amen. Amen. Talk a little bit about how teaching your children to serve changed them.
I would say it was a slight challenge because, again, they look at myself and probably my mom as like the biggest servers, that they see. Whereas with them, there's still moments where I have to tell them, come on, do this, but I do notice as I watch them in the spirit of their own friends, they are the servers. They are the ones doing it. And it's because, we taught them to always be present, always want to help. Don't wait for people to always have to ask you. If you see something that needs to be done, jump in, do it. You don't have to sit back and just say, well, they haven't asked me. No, ask them. You need help with anything? You need help? And so as I watch them develop, even in their careers, that's what they do. They are out front. They are the ones saying, I'll stay late after school and help. I'll do tutorial. I'll go the extra mile. And it's because, we taught them, don't just sit back and wait. Be the one to jump out. Be the one to serve and say, I will do it. I will help. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to kill you to give an extra 30 minutes. It's not going to kill you to make that extra phone call. And so now as they're getting older, I can begin to see, those things being implemented throughout their life.
Wow. So, one question I have for you as you're talking about your daughters, what makes you the most proud?
That they're out there and they're doing it. And even though they're not perfect, I'm not perfect, I can really see, the things that I've taught them. I can see, their strength. I can see their fight. I can see, their passion for what they love. I can see, they have not disconnected from God. They're not disconnected from church. I can see their love for family, that's been instilled in them from the foundation. And so they have that same passion and that same drive, that I have. And so it makes me proud when I can sit back even and listen to them dialogue with their friends, and they'll say something that I told them. I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is tour, giving wise counsel and things like that, and so I sit back and I just watch them thrive. I watch them thrive, and it does. It makes me proud. It makes me sit back and say, wow, God, this is what you were talking about. And so for those parents, that have young children, give it time. I always tell parents, don't rush them. You're going to look back and that time is going to be gone. I can't believe my daughters are 27 and 24. I remember when they were 3 and 6, and I was laying out their clothes and making a match and all this kind of stuff. That seemed like yesterday. And now they're grown. So give them time to grow and process and hear and learn. And that day is going to come when you're going to look back and you're going to say, yep, that I'm proud. They made me proud.
Wow. I can feel the passion coming through as you share so much powerful information for new parents, for empty nesters, for how you are now seeing the fruit of your labor. I can hear how good you feel about your relationship with God and the benefits you've reaped from that. And so my final question to you would be, what is your favorite scripture?
Oh, Jeremiah 29:11. When God talks about, for I know the plans I have for you, and for so long, I knew the plans I had, but it was something about when I began to say or ask, God, what's your plan for me? Yes, I have a plan. I know what I want to do, but what's your plan for me? Because in that, I'm going to succeed. That's where my success is going to come from. And so I hold dear Jeremiah 29:11, even in those moments where, I struggle, in the midst of the plan. even on a journey where I struggle and it doesn't feel like I'm pushing forward. I go back to Jeremiah 29:11. God, if I'm on the course and this is your plan, success has to come. Success has to follow because your word is not a lie and you're not a liar. And so Jeremiah 29:11 is my favorite all-time scripture, and that's what I hold dear to.
Wow. Okay, I do have to ask one more question. You opened the door for that.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, the plan or understand that there is purpose for their life, what would you say to them?
I would say, ask God. Ask him. Or I would say, get with a life coach or a mentor as Joanne. That's what she does. Hook up with someone that can walk you through the process of knowing what that is, because be assured there is a plan. Because you're here, there is a plan. Because God created you, there is a plan. There's a handiwork that he crafted when he thought about you. You're not a mistake. You're not here by circumstance. God has something for each and every one of us. So, if not just asking him, get with someone that can mentor you through that process so you can find out what it is and get started doing the work. Don't delay it. Don't delay it.
Awesome. Awesome. So, as I mentioned earlier, you are the CEO now of your own business. How can listeners connect with you and how can we support you?
Yes, I am the CEO of Wise Learning Connections, which is a training business where I inspire, empower, and educate individuals to have positive outcomes in your teams, in your leadership, in your family, so in your communication. So anything that you would need training and development around those areas, Wise Learning is your team. You can find us on Facebook at Wise Learning Connections, LLC. You can find us on Instagram, Wise Learning Connections, or you can email us at wiselearningconnections@gmail.com.
Awesome. Serena, thank you so much for your time today. Of course, I am so delighted that you will come and share. I am so grateful that I have been able to watch you evolve into this powerful woman on the rise. And I know that information that you shared today will definitely impact the lives of our parents. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Until next time, continue to walk by faith. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And don't forget to hit the notification button for new content every time we upload. Take care.